Morning, everyone. On behalf of the ISO, I'd like to welcome you to today's FERC Order number 881 Compliance Stakeholder Call. My name is Christina Guimera, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I will be facilitating today's meeting. Today's slide deck presentation is available on the initiative webpage. You can get to that page by going to kaiso.com, and then under the Stakeholder Center tab on the homepage, you'll see Policy Initiatives. If you click that link, it'll take you to our main initiative landing page where you can search for the initiative webpage. Next slide, please. This meeting is being recorded and the video file will be posted to the initiative webpage for information and convenience purposes only. The recordings and any related transcriptions should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. If you need any technical assistance at any point today, please send a chat to Inteller Events, the host. Next slide, please. To ask questions during the meeting, you can open the participant and chat panels on the bottom right. You can then raise your hand by selecting the raise hand icon, or if you joined audio only, press *3 on your device. For everyone joining us today, please state your name and affiliation first before speaking. You may also send comments and questions via chat to all panelists. And with that, I'll introduce Andrew Ulmer to get us started. Next slide, please. And Andrew, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning to everyone joining the call. My name is Andrew Ulmer. I work with the ISO's legal team. Today, we wanted to talk through some tariff revisions that we plan to advance for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to facilitate our implementation of Order number 881, that involves managing transmission line ratings. The tariff revisions are relatively discrete, but we wanted to make sure that stakeholders had a chance to consider them and provide us with any feedback before we step forward. And we also want to at least reference and discuss our plans to seek an extension of time for implementing Order number 881. As many may know who joined the call, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that transmission providers implement Order 881 by July of 2025, and we'll be seeking more time to do so. This first slide is just a background slide, and it just references the filings we've already made to comply with Order number 881. We made a filing that the Commission accepted subject to condition back in April of 2023, and we submitted a supplemental compliance filing with Order number 881, and the Commission accepted that in December of 2023. There were minor additional changes, but the tariff framework is at least established for us to proceed with implementation. As we've worked through the processes and the systems that we need to develop and promote to comply with Order number 881, we've identified a few additional changes to the tariff, and those are the changes we really want to discuss. So we can go to the next slide, and what I'd like to do is simply give you an overview of the changes we're making. We do have red line tariff language posted, and we may toggle to that during this call. But I also want to make sure we pause and answer any questions that folks may have. And then after we're through with the tariff language, talk a little bit about the extension request that we are considering. So one of the initial changes, and an important one, is that in our compliance filing, we parroted what Order number 881 directed, which was that transmission owners can submit ambient adjusted ratings pursuant to Order 881 for use by an ISO or RTO through SCADA or ICCP or a similar communication system. And we've been actively working to deploy a platform known as WebLine-R to support the submission of ambient adjusted ratings. And we're also utilizing, obviously, ICCP in the context of transmission providers submitting line ratings into our energy management system. But for incorporating ambient adjusted ratings, also new emergency ratings as required by Order 881, and seasonal ratings into our market processes, we are looking at this platform, deploying this platform, WebLINR. So we intend to make some changes to the tariff that provides for a more expansive, if you will, communication protocol for purposes of complying with Order number 881. Maybe we can go to the next slide. So this is a tariff change that involves access to transmission line ratings that we're utilizing in the markets, as well as transmission line rating methodologies. On compliance, we propose that persons, whether they be market participants or non-market participants that meet the requirements of a subsection in Section 6 of our tariff could obtain access to the database that we would store line ratings that we're utilizing in the markets, as well as the ISO's participating transmission owner transmission line rating methodologies. The cleanup change we're proposing is simply to identify that information, that data, ratings, methodologies, related data, for example, exceptions, as protected data under this tariff section. So what Section 6.5.10.2 requires is certain documentation be executed for folks that have a legitimate purpose to access this data, whether they be market participants or non-market participants. And our additional change was just to clarify that the data that we're identifying that would be available through that process is protected data under the tariff. So it really is simply a cleanup change. And maybe what we can do is, if it's possible, Silas, toggle now, and I can share the tariff language itself. So let me pull that up for folks. And right here at the top, it's a very minimal change, simply to specify that this information constitutes protected data. This section 6.5.10.1 lists out different types of information that constitute or qualify as protected data. This would just be another one of those matters. One of those data categories. I'm going to scroll down just to backtrack a little bit, assuming I can. To the prior change I mentioned, and that is that the change we made with respect to the communication protocols, it's really simply removing some language to provide some more latitude, and then we'll obviously explain in our tariff filing the communication system that we intend to utilize for purposes of integrating transmission line ratings into the market processes. And again, that's the WebLINR platform. And that change appears both in the tariff language that we submitted and FERC accepted involving the day-ahead market as well as the real-time market. But it's relatively minimal. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to go back to Silas and let Silas promote the PowerPoint slides again, and we may come back to this tariff language. But before we do that on those first two changes, I want to make sure there aren't any questions, so maybe I'll pause and see if anyone does have any initial questions about those two initial changes.
I'm not seeing any questions coming in quite yet, Andrew.
Okay, well, if people formulate a question as we go forward,
we did.
And I'm not going to be able to, well, please go ahead.
We did just get one in the chat from Shashi Gilwali asking, will the CAISO customized WebLINR be available to the TOP participating under CAISO? Are TOs required to purchase and acquire the OATI application?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair question. I'm not going to be able to give you a robust answer. Certainly, our expectation is that the ISO's participating transmission owners will utilize WebLINR for purposes of submitting transmission line ratings and exceptions to the ISO for use in the market processes. And in addition, submitting transmission line rating methodologies, which we will store in that database. In terms of the particulars of implementing the platform and the user agreements, et cetera, that would be necessary, I am going to punt. I think, that those are questions that probably we should be taking up in the context of both, a technical discussion with stakeholders and also potentially as part of our release user group in terms of the steps to anticipate and the expectations in terms of whatever commercial arrangements or agreements will be necessary. So I'll leave it there unless one of my colleagues who's joined us on the panel wants to share more information now.
Andrew, we have Indu we're going to try and unmute her. Silas, do you see Indu to unmute?
Yes, Indu is unmuted. She should be able to go ahead.
Thank you.
Then I'll defer to Indu if she's willing to add some gloss to my answer.
Indu, your line is unmuted in the WebEx. You may be double muted on your phone.
Yes, I was. Thank you so much. Yes, thanks, Christina. Thank you, Silas. I was double muted. Andrew, yes, thank you for covering that. I think you covered most of it. I just wanted to address the second part of it. No, you're not required to purchase or acquire the OATI application. We will be providing a user interface as well as a API web service interface for you to be able to submit the data and retrieve the data to us. So that's how you will be interacting with the WebLINR application.
Thank you. That's helpful. Good clarification.
Thanks. And
okay.
Shashi, hopefully that answered your question. If you have more questions, please ask them.
Shashi said thank you. I think that answered the question.
Okay.
And I'm not seeing any further questions in the chat at this time. Oh, I just got another one, actually. Let's see. From Samba Dasari asking, will there be any data transmission back to TOs for any AAR ratings that you may be updating based tie lines, et cetera?
Christina, can you repeat that question? I didn't catch that.
Yes, let me repeat it. The question was, will there be any data transmission back to TOs for any AAR ratings that you may be updating based on tie lines, et cetera?
Yes, so I think the question relates to, where there are both ends and which one we use. Yes, we will be providing that information back. So when you use the web service or the UI, you will be able to see what rating was used for that specific tie line.
Thanks. And we also got a question for you, Indu, asking if we can get a sample JSON file for WebLINR.
We will not be publishing a sample file, but we will be publishing the YAML specification for the JSON, and it will have all the documentation details also inside the specification. And so it will be pretty straightforward for you to generate a sample out of it. It's a different paradigm compared to what we do today with XSDs and XML. But yes, we'll be providing both the HTML and the YAML version of the specification file, which will be very descriptive in all the elements that will be included in that. We have also provided a mock service that will help you with connectivity, and we'll be publishing a tutorial on how to utilize that mock service pretty soon.
Thanks. And we did get another question from Simeon asking, quote, to be clear, FERC Order 881 requires TOPs to have a rating management database so that data can be shared and queried by other TOPs. So is CAISO owning this requirement for participating TOPs?
I'll take a stab. So, I mean, that effectively is the platform that Indy's been describing, the WebLiner platform, where we will not only receive ratings, but store ratings and make them available as well. So I think the answer is yes. And, you know, it's good to have these tariff discussions because it's clear that there are a number of implementation and technology questions as well. So we definitely will be, you know, creating a platform, creating a venue for discussing those. And that may be an important element of our discussion with respect to our request for an extension of time as well. Because we recognize
Andrew,
there are
I also wanted to, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we just recognize there are a number of affected entities, certainly starting with the transmission owners themselves that are coming up with facility ratings, both seasonal ratings, emergency ratings, ambient adjusted ratings on an hourly basis, and then all the affected entities, both within the market and non-market participants that have an interest in understanding the implementation of Order 881. Andy, please. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. Oh, no, sorry. I wanted you to finish. I also wanted to add that we have been covering the FERC 881 related technical changes in the technical user group meeting. That's every other Tuesdays at 10 a.m. We did go over the technical changes on this particular WebLiner application in the last TUG meeting. The slides are still available. The recording is also available. We have that as an ongoing topic, so we will be available to answer any technical questions in the technical user group meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. as well.
Excellent. Indy, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good public service announcement.
And we did get a couple more questions. Next up is from Samba asking, will you be clearing or sending seasonal ratings updates as well in addition to AAR ratings updates?
Not sure. I understand what he means by sending, but yes, the seasonal ratings will also be available on WebLiner for retrieval.
I think in the question surrounding on the tie lines, if I understand correctly, right, on the ARs on the tie lines, we are gonna do a clearance, essentially act as a clearinghouse, and this will be, that rating will be available for the TOPs. I'm assuming the question is surrounding what will you be doing the same thing on the seasonal rating as well? Will be clear on the seasonal rating on the tie line?
I see. I don't think we have covered that scenario. The seasonal ratings will be only used as a backup in case the AAR is not available. But that's a good question, Raja, that we will need to make sure that we have covered in case the AAR is not available between the two ends for seasonal ratings.
Yep. Let's take back that and check on that. Thank you. Yep.
So, Christina, I know there's a number of questions coming in. They seem to all be kind of technical and technology in nature, maybe some process related as well with respect to how to obtain more information, where to subscribe or locate the the link and the meeting frequency for the technology user group. I think we should try to capture these meetings, capture these questions, and maybe we can provide answers. Maybe Indu, you could just restate when the TUG meets and where folks can look on the ISO website to find out more information.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I see one more question related to the tag about whether it's only for IT developers. No, it's not. It's technical in nature in the sense that we will be presenting technical content in that meeting. It is posted on the CAISO website. So if you go to the calendar on CAISO.com, you will see that the technical user group is posted there. It's every other Tuesday at 10 a.m. And there is one tomorrow. It's not just for FERC 881. There was one more question related to that. It covers all the technical changes either happening soon or happening in the near future across all projects and across all applications. We covered WebLine-R in the last meeting, and the slides are still there. The recordings are also available, but we will be available tomorrow also to answer any questions related to WebLine-R. Please check out the event on the CAISO.com calendar.
Okay, great. Well, maybe we can, Silas, move to the next slide, and we'll finish up going through the draft tariff changes we're considering submitting, and then we can pivot and talk more about the time that we intend to seek. And in the interim, I know folks are busy in the chat. Maybe we can capture all of these questions and commit the stakeholders to get you short answers. Ideally, what I'd like to do is make sure that everyone has the benefit of the questions and answers. So if we can't get to all of them on this call, we can certainly try to address them in either another call or perhaps in a short frequently asked questions document on our website.
Yes, I'm making sure to capture all these comments, and also we'll have the comment template opened up, and folks can ask any questions that they have through the comment template as well, and we'll get back to them.
Okay, thanks, Christine, very much. So I'll just touch on this next slide briefly. When we submitted our compliance filing, we positioned the language in such a way that we asked that our participating transmission owners and our participants in the Western Energy Imbalance Market that are public utility transmission providers and need to comply with order number 881, that they submit any hourly ambient adjusted ratings for use in the real-time market processes 5 hours before the operating hour, in a sense so that we could use the same rating across all real-time market processes that the ISO runs. We're now proposing to shift this language so that we have some more flexibility and not so much create a, if you will, a deadline for entities to submit ambient adjusted ratings for use in the hour. Those will be coming to us on a rolling basis. And so instead, we're going to utilize some language that will give us the flexibility to pull ratings that we have in the WebLine-R tool closer to real time and use those ratings that we have closer to the beginning of the real-time market processes. We'll be pulling data on a ongoing basis and on a rolling 6-hour basis, I think is our intent, such that, you know, before the real-time market runs, say the first 15-minute market interval of an hour, we'll be having up-to-date data. So we are proposing to do that in the real time. And then again, we're eliminating the deadline that we put in the tariff for purposes of our PTOs, giving us hourly ratings for use in the day-ahead market processes. And instead of saying that those must be in by 9 a.m. On the day before a trading day, instead we're simply going to be pulling information from WebLine-R and pulling as close to the real-time, sorry, not the real-time, close to the beginning of the day-ahead market process runs as is feasible. So it adds some more flexibility. There's some trade-offs here between having more up-to-date ratings, if you will, in both the day-ahead and the real-time market processes versus having, if you will, a static rating for use across all real-time market processes. But we think the trade-offs weigh in favor of us pulling the rating information that's available to us closer in time to when the real-time market processes begin. So that is that tariff change. And I don't know, I want to stop and pause here, see if there are any specific questions about this tariff change and the process change we're making.
Not seeing any questions related to this slide coming in.
Okay. We can maybe go on to the next one.
Andrew, sorry, this is Raj. I just want to add one point on the previous slide. There's no requirement changes for the TOPs, right? The TOPs or PTOs, they'll still be submitting hourly, just like what we require. This is just a change on how we plan to use those ratings, right? What they're submitting. Thank you.
That's correct. That's correct. Thank you. Good addition. Okay. So the next set of revisions deals with fallback ratings. In order number 881, FERC directed that if an hourly ambient adjusted rating is unavailable for any reason, that the applicable rating should be the seasonal rating. And we're going to propose a variation on that directive that we think is consistent with or superior to what FERC directed. And that is that, we'll have a certain priority in terms of our energy management system and having the ability to use ratings that it receives through ICCP. But when we get to the market processes, we need to have fallback ratings if, for whatever reason, we're not able to pull data. And as I mentioned before, we'll be seeking to pull data on a rolling 6-hour basis. So in terms of our real-time markets, our intent is to use the last ambient adjusted rating received for a relevant trading hour. And if we don't have one because of a prolonged or persistent failure in systems or data, then we would then revert to a seasonal rating. But it seems to us that with forecasting, we'll have a pretty good read on the applicable trading hour in the real-time market. But if we don't, we'll then revert to the seasonal rating. In the day-ahead time frame, given forecast uncertainty, we think it's still prudent to fall back to the seasonal rating if we have a chronic data issue and we can't get up-to-date hourly ratings before we run the day-ahead market processes. And then we have a nuance here in the tariff that if we do have a rating change in our outage management system, that will control. So there's sort of a hierarchy of priorities in terms of the ratings we'll use, and they're intended to be conservative. That's intentional, but they are a little bit more nuanced than just falling back to the seasonal rating in all cases. Let me stop there, see if there are any questions.
We do have a hand raised by Sandman.
Hey, good morning, Andrew and folks. On this slide, can we expand a little bit on the use of seasonal ratings outside the 10-day window? And I bring this up because looking into the order, I think every entity would have a different criteria for their seasonal rating, right? I mean, for the most part, summer, winter are pretty consistent with the entities within REC. But I think with the order proposing to have a fourth season at a minimum as part of the seasonal ratings, the whole aspect of maybe defining a fall season might be different for different entities. So if, and I know REC doesn't generate a fall base case, so we don't really have that's a different aspect of it. But in terms of the timing, if one EIM entity is going into a fourth season or a fall season at a certain time, which is different than another EIM entity, how will CAISO incorporate that as part of the market dispatches, or I guess in terms of for a fallback purpose, how will you differentiate which entities' seasonal ratings you're going to incorporate?
Yeah. Fair question. I mean, we go back, I think, to the first principle, which is we are not going to set ratings, establish ratings. We're going to take ratings from transmission providers. I know Ankit has his hand up, so I'll let him amplify. But my initial answer is that if there's a shared facility, for example, and we have two ratings, that we'll be taking the most conservative of the two. And is there a possibility that the 4 seasons that a transmission provider identifies in its own transmission line rating methodology will differ from the 4 seasons that another transmission provider identifies in its transmission line rating methodology? I expect that is a possibility. But again, I think we would look to use the most conservative rating, and then obviously well, let me stop there and see, Ankit, if you have additional input you want to share.
Yeah, Andrew, thank you. I think on the particular topic of the possibility of different season dates for different entities, and we can bring this question a little bit more and go in depth in addressing this question in the technical discussion as well. But we are creating software requirements to be able to address different dates for different entities. I don't know, Sandman, if that addresses your question.
At some level, maybe it does. And to your point, I think it could be flushed out more on the technical context too. I think where I was trying to go to it specifically with respect to EIM and the ETSR capacity that is kind of being used. Yeah, and I guess to Andrew's point, the ETSR limits would be provided by the EIM entity. So are there any new enhancements put forth from an EIM context for the entities to incorporate their seasonal rating as part of the 881? Or it is just, whatever the EIM entities are providing is what CAISO is going to use?
Hey, I can add, this is Raja, I can respond. Salman, I think, let me know if I understand your question correctly. I think you're referring to the fallback ratings with respect to the EAM, right? I think the logic that Andrew presenting here is more towards our EMS real-time systems, EMNA and RTCA systems, how we'll be using the fallback ratings, right? So you have the ratings coming in through ICCP, and then you have coming in through AAR. So it depends upon how long the data is stale, right? So depending upon for each TOP, we can set up that when we can fall back to the seasonal ratings. But as far as the markets concerned, right, as Andrew mentioned there, both in day-ahead market and the real-time market, we want to switch to the seasonal ratings. And with respect to the times that Ankit mentioned, right, I think start and end times, we'll have those, and we'll be using those start and end times. So based upon that, right, what are the seasonal rating that is active for that for the season? If you have start and end times different each TOP, then that the systems will be using those.
Okay. Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying that context of this was more from an EMS standpoint, not from an EIM, but I think what you highlighted or talked about makes sense from what you and Ankit provided. So yeah, I think I'm good with my question.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
I think thanks very much. It's helpful. I think I saw a question about what sort of verification or validation the ISO may do in the context of looking at ratings that are coming in. And it's a fair question. I think maybe there's more to discuss in terms of ICCP submissions. Certainly in the context of the markets, I think we've set up an expectation that there should be some verification or validation that occurs before a rating is submitted into WebLINR. But I think we will also have some outer boundary validation steps to try to detect some kind of data anomaly, that if we're getting ratings that seem to be way out of bounds. But apart from that, I think that may be a very good discussion topic in the context of a implementation process discussion in terms of what will happen under certain scenarios in terms of the submission of rating data that might be anomalous for whatever reason.
Andrew, we also got a question in the chat asking if this slide is valid for forecast ratings as well.
Well, I mean, all ratings except for those we're receiving through ICCP are forecast ratings. But if we get out in time, you know, say beyond the day ahead processes that we're running, I think our expectation is we will have those you know, ratings and potentially be utilizing them in forward processes that we run for reliability purposes or for information purposes. And I guess if we lose those data inputs for whatever reason, I probably defer to Raji here, but my sense is that we would go to the most conservative and utilize the seasonal ratings for purposes of running those processes.
That is accurate. I think there's also a question surrounding reasonability verifications. Ankit can help us with that. I know we have the reasonability in the ICCP, but I think for at least on the ratings, as long as the data is there, the system can check on those reasonability limits. Ankit can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I think that's a good topic for additional further discussion as to what kind of reasonability limits. From a capability point of view, we have the capability. I think you know, we can expand a little bit more on our thinking around how we will be determining or placing that reasonability limit, and what are the mechanics of identifying those limits. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Ankit. I know we have talked at multiple forums on that reasonability limits, you know, plus or minus 10%, right? I think so. We can continue to talk on those forums and then come up with the right numbers that we can use. But again, those checks we are not performing. We are not planning to do any calculations on our side. We're just receiving the ratings. So those checks, it's more just a verification check. But other than that, it doesn't check the validity of the rating, right? Just a what do you call this dumb method checking the rating. So just still depends upon whether the plus or minus is accurate for that rating, for the type of equipment and for the type of conductor. Thank you.
Okay, I think there's another question that came in about the use of ICCP for real-time ratings and or forecast ratings. Is that right, Christina?
Yes, Samba was saying, I am assuming ICCP is currently used or recommended for current hour only and not for forecast ratings.
Yep, that is accurate. ICCP is only current hour rating, not forecast ratings. Forecast ratings will come to the webline hour.
Okay, Silas, if we can go to the next slide. So the last change we're proposing here is simply to include references to EDAM entities in our tariff in terms of our ability to accept ratings from them for purposes of the day-ahead market and the real-time market. When we submitted our compliance filing with Order 881, we didn't have this reference. We didn't have an EDAM tariff that had been reviewed or accepted by the Commission. Now that we do, now that we're on an implementation trajectory, we thought it was appropriate to include this reference as well, but really more in the form of a cleanup change than anything else. I think that's the end of the references to the tariff changes. And I would say also that, you know, definitely encourage folks to look at the red line language. It's there, it's in draft form. You know, if there are perspectives or comments folks want to share or concerns, we definitely solicit your comments, and we'll review them in addition to the questions we're receiving today in the chat.
Thanks, Andrew. Oh, sorry. Did you have something else to say?
Well, I just wanted to transition, unless there aren't any questions, on the tariff to a discussion about the extension of time that we are considering requesting from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I definitely want to hand the baton back to you to emphasize sort of where we might receive more written comments and feedback on both the tariff changes and really on this discussion as well on the extension of time. But maybe I can just introduce that and see if that that triggers any questions before I turn it back to you. As I mentioned, FERC directed that we comply with order number 881 by July of 2025. We're now exploring submitting a filing next month that would request more time. And I'll share that we're considering framing this filing as an extension of time until a no later date. So, give us flexibility to comply no later than, and right now we're thinking about a date in December of 2026, but that may evolve as this conversation continues. But giving us flexibility to implement Order 881 earlier than December of 2026. So we are exploring and looking at the possibility of making the real-time market functionality available early in the first quarter of 2026. And we'd like to have the flexibility to consume hourly ambient adjusted ratings at that time for purposes of the real-time market. And shortly after, at the beginning of Q2, similarly for the day-ahead market, making that functionality available for our participating transmission owners, for EIM entities, and then EDAM entities to submit hourly ratings for purposes of use in the day-ahead market and the real-time market. That would give us some cushion in case something happened, or alternatively, it would create some cushion for some of our transmission owners or potentially EDAM participants or EIM entities who aren't necessarily ready to submit hourly ratings for use in the day-ahead market and real-time market earlier in 2026. So we want to make sure that the request for the extension we're submitting not only covers the California ISO, but certainly covers the California ISO participating transmission owners as well, and that they have certainty and flexibility as they proceed along their implementation path with order number 881. And then for purposes of the day-ahead market and the real-time market, extending that flexibility to EDAM entities, to EIM entities as well. That doesn't necessarily address independent requirements that prospective EDAM entities or existing EIM entities may have under Order 881 for purposes of making of incorporating ratings into the transmission service they sell under their open access transmission tariffs. But for purposes of participating in the day-ahead market and real-time market, making sure there's sufficient time to go through the steps necessary they're demonstrating that the hourly ratings that they're submitting are being processed and administered through the market processes in an acceptable way. So that's the request as we're thinking about it now. I know that's kind of broad, and I want to open it up to see if there are any questions, initial questions that folks have. And then again, maybe echoing some comments Christina's putting in the chat, really solicit any input, feedback, or thoughts that folks have through our online commenting tool.
Yeah, so we got a couple questions in the chat while you were speaking. First up, we have a comment from Stephen saying that he wouldn't anticipate that the near-term forecasted ratings would differ too far from the real-time values. And then he asked, couldn't this value plus an agreed-upon delta be used as a verification check along with reasonability ratings?
Fair question, and a good one, I think, for discussion with NCAT in subsequent implementation dialogues in terms of how we fashion an appropriate reasonableness threshold.
And then we got another question from Felda asking if the CAISO plans to submit the draft tariff revision to FERC in January 2025, will this change any other timeline related to the implementation? And then a follow-up question of when does the CAISO anticipate to receive a response back from FERC on this filing?
Well, fair enough. I mean, I think we are thinking about submitting these tariff revisions in January, likely coincident with a request for an extension of time, whether it will be submitted in one filing or two filings. I think that's to be determined. In our filing, when we submit to the commission, we will request that the commission address the filing within a time certain. Sometime probably either at the end of the first quarter or in the early second quarter, so that we have certainty in terms of what the tariff rules are, but also in terms of our timelines to implement. But I think apart from proceeding with implementation steps over the course of the next year, I suppose we are hoping that the commission will give us the relief we request, because getting this done by the July 2025 timeframe is I think too large an effort, both for us, I think, and likely for our participating transmission owners and other public utility transmission providers operating in the West. So that's the plan right now. Hopefully that provides you some degree of an answer to your question.
Hey, Andrew, this is Raja. I can add. I know there's a question surrounding our track 2 effort as well, or if you are contemplating as an extension for that. I know we shared our plan in a prior stakeholder call. At the end of the day, this extension strictly towards the track 3. What does that mean? We are still in plan to get the WebLiner into production by summer 2025. That is a track 2. Major components of the track 2 is the WebLiner. So we still plan to finish it up and still continue to test with the stakeholders and get those, again, for the TOPs that are not contemplating any extension at this point. We still want to work with you and acquire those ratings. And obviously, we'll not be using those ratings in any of our downstream processes yet because we are asking for an extension. But we plan to use, at least analyze those ratings and then acquire additional knowledge, because this is the first time we'll be seeing those hourly changing ratings. So it will still benefit us as much as possible before we start actually using them, analyze them, and develop some knowledge of how the ratings are changing, how it impacts operations, whatnot. So hope that helps the question. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is this is going to be a very resource-intensive project over 2025. So.
And we do have a hand raised by Sandman.
Hey, maybe this is to Raja. On the last point you mentioned, by summer, when CAISO is ready to accept the ratings from TOPs for AD1 compliance, just to clarify, you won't be using them in any of your downstream market applications, but the reliability applications would still be using them? Or you're just also getting an extension for the reliability applications as well?
So the track 1 reliability applications, Salman, that technically should be done by end of this year. We should be compliant with that, right? At least on the reliability applications, we are not asking an extension. So the EMS, EMNA, RTCA, all those ratings will be acquired through ICCP. So as long as the TOPs or PTOs are able to provide through the ICCP, we'll be using those ratings in their processes. There's no extension request for it. The WebLiner is the one that the ratings from WebLiner eventually will go into all our market tools as well as RCMS to look ahead reliability applications. So all those processes We'll not be implementing it this time. We'll be as Andrew mentioned, we'll be asking for an extension, so that the data will be there residing in the WebLine R, coming in hourly again for the TUPs that will be sending us, and we plan to analyze those ratings throughout the summer. But we'll not be using those ARs in any form or fashion at this point of time.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe one more clarification that when you say the look ahead application, so all your D+1, D+2s, for the next year assessments, they are not going to be using the ratings from WebLine R. Is that correct?
That is accurate. It's all seasonal ratings until we go and change, right? Again, I know again, it all depends upon FERC approving the extension, right? But yeah, but that's the plan.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think I was missing that part initially. I thought it was only the market applications getting impacted. I was under the impression that we are still good for the reliability side of things, but real time is fine. Look ahead, D+1, D+2, that is going to be included part of the extension.
Exactly. Thank you.
Got it.
I think we have time for this one final question I see in the chat from Doug saying, APS and some of our neighbors use units of amps for our transmission line ratings. My understanding is that the RC will be requiring AAR data be submitted in units of MVA. Will you allow AAR data to be submitted to WebLine R or ICCP in units of amps? We have concerns of the added complexity and cost to implement conversion to units of MVA when sending via ICCP.
Yeah, I can help that question. The Ankit can help me there as well. I definitely that has been addressed in prior calls as well. We have that. It's all MVA, right? We'll back convert that into amps in our processes based upon the TOP that is using in amps. But at this point, we are still requesting everything in MVA. We definitely understand the challenge, but Ankit, do you want to add on to anything else on that?
Not at this time, Raja. You covered it.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Christina, again, maybe you can just reiterate for folks on the call where the comment template or the comment portal is, and then also just to emphasize that we very much would appreciate any thoughts or perspectives folks have on both the tariff language and the request for more time. And obviously, based on Indu's pointers, please, if appropriate, do join the technical user group, and you'll be hearing obviously more on implementation steps as we go forward together.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so the comment template will be opening up on our initiative webpage shortly after this call. I've included the link here in the chat, and we'll have 3 questions, one related just in general to this call, a second one in relation to the revised redline draft tariff language, and then a third option to include any additional questions or comments not captured in the previous 2 categories. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or trouble reaching that. You can always email us at isostakeholderaffairs@CAISO.com. And let me take a quick look to see no final hands raised. No, so if we can move on to the next slide, Silas. We just have a quick announcement for insights into the ISO grid and market operations. You can be on the lookout for our Energy Matters blog, or you can always subscribe. Here you can see some of our latest blog posts. And with that, we'd like to thank you so much for joining today's discussion. As a reminder, this meeting was recorded for informational and convenience purposes only. The video file will be posted on the initiative webpage. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.